Hi everybody, I've been very busy lately, but I wanted to take some time out because I just happened to watch a new video by Matthew Smith, and he asked us for our opinions, and I was going to write them in the comment section below his video, but then I figured, it's better to just make a video response. You can say a lot more, you can see the face and hear the tone and everything. So he asked us about fads, like certain fads of collecting records. Is the vinyl resurgence going to last forever? And also the Beatles. The Beatles interest that's going on now, is that going to last forever? Because the original fans are going to die out, and maybe it gets a little less and less every year, every decade, or whatever. So first, I'll just cover a little bit about the vinyl. Matt was saying that maybe this is a current hipster trend. A lot of the younger people in their teens and 20s are getting into records, and it's just like a hipster thing for the moment. They're collecting because it's the thing to do, it's cool, or it's what's in vogue, whatnot. Are they going to keep doing that? I think there'll probably be some people that are going to just hang on for a little while and probably give up and maybe sell their records. But I think there are other people, young people, that once it's in your blood, like a lot of us, it's going to stay in your blood forever, and they're probably going to continue to collecting records and albums, 45s if they're into it, whatever. No, I don't think vinyl's ever going to get back to being like 80-90% of all music sales. I don't think that's realistic, but it doesn't matter because, as I've learned here, getting back into vinyl and being in the vinyl community and so on, the idea is that as long as you have enough people that are in the same group as you, even if it's only 5-10%, once you all come together, you find out that the rest of the world can go away. It doesn't matter what they're doing. You're involved in your group and in your own kind of world. So we can all enjoy that together, and it still feels like you're in good company. Well, I want to get into the Beatles a little bit now, explain my feelings on that. Matthew also brought up the subject of the Beatles, how he talked about how he remembers in 1995 when he went to pick up the anthology release that was out then. He expected maybe 20 or 30 fans to be there at the store, and there were like 200 people or something lined up the night before to get it. My feeling on the Beatles is kind of the same thing. Perhaps there's going to be a time when the older generation, the ones that grew up with the Beatles, the older generation and the second generation, are going to die out. But I don't think the Beatles, honestly, will ever die. I mean, this question has been asked for a long time now. People have been saying since the 60s, in fact, reporters used to ask the Beatles themselves during press conferences, what'll you do when the bubble bursts? And in 1970, they wondered if the Beatles would go on forever and be remembered. And we're sitting here in 2015, which is, if you had looked back to 1969 or 1970, 2015 seemed like something from another universe, complete science fiction. So we're still here talking about that, and I think that's really to be championed. Now, I know from my own experience, I've been into the Beatles a long time, and I remember in 1970, I'm going to call it 77, around there, I was in high school, and I was 15, and I was heavily into the Beatles, and even then there were a lot of people in the class that were like getting over that. I remember, I can still picture it vividly in my mind. People were getting into Kiss then a lot. Kiss was very popular. But I remember one guy in particular saying, why don't you forget the Beatles? The Beatles broke up 7 years ago, and he says, I remember I used to be a Beatles fanatic too until I woke up. He said it sarcastically, and I just remember that because I think it's as funny now as I did then. It was even funnier then because the Beatles had only been gone 7 years, and all four of them were alive, and and doing new stuff, and there was always still, even then, the possibility they might reunite. So it was kind of funny to hear a guy, say, "Oh, the Beatles are so passé, they're so yesterday, get with today." So my point being, we've heard this a lot of times before. This is nothing new. The Beatles are old, get with today, get with the program. You're going to be hearing it for the next 20, 30, 40 years, I think. It's never going to stop. Yeah, 1995 Anthology was a success. In fact, I think in 1996, the Beatles might have been the best-selling act of 96, if I remember correctly. There was a VH1 special that was done about that at one time. And I remember Paul McCartney being interviewed, and he said, you know, for the longest time we were trying to figure out who was going to be bigger than the Beatles, and it turned out it was us. You know? So, by the way, tonight Paul is going to be on the Grammys. You know, he's going to be on there with Kanye West and Rihanna, so don't forget to watch. I know I'll be watching. But anyway, let's see. So, yeah, that was 1995 and 96. Then, in the year 2000, the Beatles compilation 1 came out, and that broke all kinds of records and was like an amazing seller. Also, you know, so the Beatles boom goes on and on. I think the difference with the Beatles compared to like some other acts like Elvis Presley, and I'm an Elvis Presley fan too, as a lot of you know. Elvis's music, to me, I think, in my opinion anyway, it kind of seems more outdated, more of another time. The Beatles stuff is old too, but for some reason it's got something of a timeless, interesting quality to it that always appeals to some younger fans. You know, there's always going to be younger fans that are into the Beatles, and you know, that's pretty comforting to know. But you know, Matt said it correctly in his video, though. He said, you know, even if some people that are younger, say in their schools, high schools or something, like the Beatles, you know, that's like this many of them like the Beatles, but there's this many kids, you know. And I go back to what I said about vinyl in the beginning, in my opinion. In my opinion, even if there's only 10% of the world's population of teens and 20-somethings that are into the Beatles, say just 10% worldwide, that's still enough when you take them all together to make a pretty impressive army. And I don't think that's ever going to stop. Again, you know, okay, some people aren't interested in them. Some people don't care about records or vinyl. Some people don't care about the Beatles. That's their prerogative, and they don't have to. But, you know, we're not concerned with them. You know, keep the eye on the positive. You know, if you look at how many people there are versus how many there are not, there's still more than enough to have an impressive array of Beatle fans. Well, that's my general feeling on that. You know, I've heard this, you know, the Beatles are going to be forgotten. Oh, one other story that came to mind about that. I remember in January of 1980, or the 80s were just about to start, I listened to a popular radio station that played a lot of rock. It was a rock station. And I remember there was a call-in show that they would do where they kind of like took calls from listeners and got their opinions and feedback. And one of the questions that a caller had was, hey, you know, the Beatles were really popular in the 70s. They continued to be popular. In your opinion, he asked the host, in your opinion, do you think the Beatles will continue to be a big force and be as popular in the 80s? And I remember very clearly, you know, one guy saying, you know, the thing about the Beatles is, he says, a lot of that stuff is like stuff you've heard a million times, and you don't want to hear it anymore, he says. This is 1980. You know, he says, I mean, you know, so, you know, but still, he says, that doesn't mean that the old stuff should get flushed down the toilet. I just remember that. So, you know, another tidbit there about how people are always saying, you know, the Beatles are going to be a fad. You know, we've heard that since 1963, and I don't think we're going to stop hearing it, even in, you know, something like 2063. Now, this is a little bit off the topic, but I'm just going to tell a little story for anybody who might want to hang on and listen to this. It has to do with something I experienced recently. This is going back, I'd say a couple of weeks ago maybe, when I was moving some stuff into my new apartment that I'm not in yet. What happened was, this is going back, like I say, a couple of weeks, we had a situation where there were a couple of people that were going to help me move some of my stuff. So they took their cars over to my place here, and we loaded up some stuff in the car, okay? Now, some of them were records and some of them were other things, but in the back of the trunks of the cars and the back seats, I put a lot of 45s, a lot of records. I opened my trunk and I put, you know, those 45, I don't have any here, you know, the 45 carrying cases, the little cases, put them all in the back trunk of my car and put some in the trunks of these other 2 cars. So 3 of us, drove to the new place, and we worked together. We put all the stuff into the new apartment, so keep it safe in there. So, all right, we were done, etc., etc. We went out to dinner. I took them out to dinner for helping me. Then 3 days go by, and we've had a lot of cold here, very cold temperatures, freezing temperatures, and I was doing food shopping one night with my girlfriend, and we came out of the supermarket, and we opened up the trunk of the car to put the groceries in the car, and lo and behold, what do we find in the trunk? My eyes almost popped out of my head. There was a whole trunk full of 45 record cases. And not just any 45s. The ones that I had taken in the trunk for me over to the new place were all my Beatles. Imports, colored vinyl, picture sleeves, Elvis Presley. I mean, just all the cream of the crop were in my trunk. Somehow, the day that we went to move, I had forgotten, or all of us had forgotten to unload my trunk. So I'd been riding around for 3 days in freezing temperatures with the 45s in the trunk. So what I did was quickly put the groceries in the back seat of the car, and then I hightailed it over to the apartment, and to try to get them in the new apartment and warm them up. Well, at least there's a good ending to this story. I mean, things were okay. I don't know what I was, imagining. I was imagining that maybe because of the cold temperatures and then the warm temperatures, that maybe they were going to be water damaged. Maybe they had kind of got frozen. There was some, mistiness on it, and then the condensation and all this. I don't know what I thought. But I went through and picked out a bunch, and they looked fine. They were all in protective plastic sleeves, and there doesn't seem to be any damage. They were cold, but there wasn't anything wrong with them. Anyway, there's my horror story for today. And it was good sharing another video with you all. Take it easy.